And we're back with our wrestling-themed edition of the Screen Team on today's Talk 930 KWOC. The show is brought to you by Whitworth Gift Chest Jewelers, where Walmart is next door to us. 33 Productions, putting their skills to work in Poplar Bluff community since 2011. And also Poplar Bluff Drywall, interior and exterior finishing. Give them a call, 714-3127. Poplar Bluff Drywall, we rock. Now, the last film we did was a fun comedy about wrestling. This next film goes in a complete 180. This is a very serious, very character-driven drama called The Wrestler. The movie stars Mickey Rourke, also Marissa Tomei, and Evan Rachel Wood. Very serious film. Got a lot of attention by the Academy Awards. Kyle, what'd you think of this film?
It's one of my favorite films because it's actually, most people may not realize this, based on the life of a former professional wrestler, Jake the Snake Roberts.
Now, is that fact? Is that true?
That's fact.
Where'd you hear that from?
Well, I've read about it at several places. Plus, having read Jake's life story and watching this movie, the similarities are very accurate. Mm-hmm. It's Mickey Rourke plays a former very famous pro wrestler named Randy the Ram Robinson. He's trying to reclaim his glory years, but he also deals with substance abuse. He has a horrible relationship with his children, and he's doing anything he can to reclaim his past glory, and almost kills himself over it. It's an extremely deep movie, and it's not. When I first saw it, it wasn't the type of film I thought would be nominated for an Academy Award in any facet, but the fact that the Academy gave him a Best Actor nominee was mind-blowing to me.
He should have won.
I actually thought he would have, and you know what? It would have been telling to the Academy to go in a different route with the type of films that they usually would name a winner for. Because you think wrestling, like, oh, well, that's silly. Not at all. It's a fantastic film, and just to say the least, Mickey Rourke was in phenomenal shape for this film.
Yeah, yeah, he really was. And
huge.
It kind of shows, because when we see wrestling, we see a lot of the stuff on TV, the Raw, the SmackDown, the stuff like that. But a lot of the former wrestlers, they go and they do these small circuit kind of things to still make ends meet and stuff like that. And this is the kind of stuff they've got to go through, And this
still exists today. You see a lot of former pro wrestlers who guys were big stars, in the 80s, maybe early 90s or, late 90s that are still out there doing it either because they love it or because they have to. In his case, in this movie, he absolutely had to. It's just that's the independent wrestling circuit. You'll see a lot of smaller promotions that may occasionally get a big name, and that's where a lot of this movie was driven from. The final promotion they used is called Ring of Honor Wrestling. Mm-hmm. It's the third biggest wrestling promotion in the United States right now. It's produced a lot of great names, but the fact that they were able to use that promotion, and they had a lot of young wrestlers who now work for WWE, so it had a very authentic feel to it. What I liked about it most is that it still felt like I was watching old 80s wrestling in a lot of ways. It had a very grainy, organic feel to it. Very dark.
Stacey?
Well, first, let me just say that, we talked about DDP in the last one.
Yes. And
now we're talking about Jake Roberts. Mm-hmm. And thanks to DDP, Jake Roberts is still with us today. I fully believe that.
Absolutely.
Because of his yoga and healthy lifestyle program. I mean, if you just Google the two names together, you're going to come up with some great videos. That aside, I liked this movie. It was, for somebody like me who has a hard time sitting still through movies, it had a lot of slow parts.
It's very dry.
And
yes.
I have seen it before, so I felt okay fast forwarding through some of the slower parts. I mean, how many times do we have to watch him in the deli counter?
Right.
I think we would have been good for 1 minute of, hey mama, how do you like your ham? To, I quit, that would have been plenty of that. But Mickey Rourke did a phenomenal job. He knocked this one out of the park, and the way it ends.
Pulls at him, doesn't it?
You just don't know.
Right? Yeah, what happened?
You just don't know. I mean, he without giving too much away, he looks a certain direction, and what he wants to see is not there anymore. And
God, I like the open-endedness of it. It really leaves you thinking.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that caught me about this movie is that what you see with his character is how a lot of older wrestlers that are still with us today, or maybe not, those are the kind of lifestyles they lived, and they look very, very rough because of it. Mm-hmm. And you can get a glimpse, just a little bit, into what those guys dealt with. It was a time where there was a lot of drugs and a lot of alcohol and hard partying.
And a lot of guys come out of it okay. I've read the Rock's biography, and when he was starting, he was sleeping on nasty mattresses that were thrown out by hotels and no food. And he's made it work for him. I doubt he'll ever have to go back to sleeping on nasty, rat-infested mattresses. But they like several of them live in an apartment like this together while they're doing that. And it's hey, these people are doing what they love regardless of what they've lost, and and that says a lot, I guess. But
it really does, especially for guys who came up in that older generation, which that, is starting to run its course. No more Undertakers you see, very little of the Triple H's, the Steve Austins of the world who lived hard and they went hungry and were poor maybe at times. You don't have that so much, but that's what I liked about this. It felt very authentic, especially for someone like me who's listened to a lot of old wrestling stories from back in the day. It really grabs a hold of you and takes you deeper. You
kind of feel for the guy. At one time you're like, oh my gosh, you're too old to be acting like this. You're going to have to knock that off. But then in the next moment, you're like, cut him some slack. Just cut him some slack. Somebody give the guy a break. And then you go right back to, they told you not to do this, and you're doing it anyway. Give him a smack upside up the head.
Got to grow up a bit,
Yeah.
Yeah. I hated this movie.
Wow.
I figured you would.
Yeah.
I didn't think you'd like it at all.
There's a scene in there where they rip on Kurt Cobain and 90s music, and I had to turn it off. I had to turn it off. I was like,
grunge.
Exactly. No, seriously, guys, I love this film. It's
wow, what a troll.
I'm surprised. Chris, you and I never agree on a movie.
That's true. That's true. I like I like character studies. I really do, and this is definitely a character study on this one character. I like the fact that they gave Mickey Rourke a chance because for those who don't know, Mickey Rourke was a huge time movie star back in the late '80s, early '90s, kind of like a poor man's Bruce Willis, if you will. Very good looking guy. He got into I believe boxing. And got his face all messed up and did a lot of plastic surgery.
Bad plastic
surgery, and couldn't really get a job in Hollywood too much. And this was the role that kind of got him back on the map in Hollywood. And you can see why, because the guy's really a very talented actor.
What better way for him to get, for Mickey Rourke to do this than to play a guy who was a has-been who's trying to just make it happen.
Relatable to him.
This movie was made for him. It really was. And I was on IMDb, and you know who they were considering for the role before Mickey Rourke?
Who's that?
Nicolas Cage.
No.
Whoa.
No.
Sleep on that one, man.
No, I can't. And on an aside, before we move on, he actually got to have a WrestleMania moment.
Nick Cage?
No, Mickey Rourke.
Oh, okay.
Because of this movie, it was a 3-on-1 handicap match between Chris Jericho and 3 Hall of Famers: Superfly Jimmy Snuka, Ricky Steamboat, and Roddy Piper. And they were all led to the ring by Mickey Rourke because Jericho was berating these Hall of Famers and legends.
Yeah.
And at the very end of the match, when Jericho won, Mickey Rourke knocked him out.
Nice.
Yeah. Way to capitalize.
Oh, goodness. We got one more movie to review. It's a documentary called Beyond the Mat. We'll get to that next on today's Talk 930 KWOC.